for me, I mean, success is very difficult. And I mean, I'm not, when I'm emphasizing the financial aspect of success, I'm not saying that this is the core or this is what being an artist is all about, but I think without having a somewhat secure life, a good life, it's very difficult to develop artistic practices. So I think this for me is something like, maybe it's even more important than artistic success. But if I would have to give a very short answer to this very broad question, I would say conditions of leading a good life, and especially meaning a not too precarious life.
Money, go get the money, get you some. Money, go get the money.
We don't have a manual yet, and I think that is pretty good.
Honestly, I mean, I have really no idea. I have no answer to this question, because there's about zillions of ways, and there's zillions of ways of success, and it depends all depending on context and reference. So I don't know.
Es kommen verschiedene Mechanismen von Reputation und Anerkennung, von Charisma und sozialer Herkunft, von Glaubenssystemen eigentlich zusammen, die dann letztendlich sowas wie Erfolg ausmachen.
If you intend successful in terms of money of the art market, then that's one thing, but for me that's not a successful artist. A successful artist for me is a good artist who makes good work, a meaningful, interesting, valid work. If you think in terms of an artist being successful on the art market, you have to be super informed, you have to be super pushy, I guess. You have to have mentors, you have to have a good network. If you look at artists, several artists, there are many where the success comes when they are like 50, 60, if they're lucky.
To be successful, I mean, from what I consider to be successful, is to do a work of art that I think says something important.
I can say some don'ts. Never call a curator you don't know on the cell phone. Never send in original artworks to a curator without being asked. Don't try to make a fast career. I mean, I think it's really about selecting your projects carefully and only do the stuff you really want to do and you find relevant. Rather do less than bad projects. I think select your network in your own generation and start with that, and then build your network up carefully and slowly. Don't go to good art events, but don't try to sell yourself. Rather, really meet people you like to talk to, you like to discuss with, and have interesting conversations. It's really about being committed to art and its own work without being a sales manager all the time.
I think the history of art is the history of culture. It's been mostly written by men, just because of the social structures that have put men in the foreground of carrying on the professional, public activities of our culture. But that has radically changed over the past 50 years and even before. So I would say, I mean, some of my very favorite artists are women artists.
Wenn man sich jetzt so Top 10 oder Rankings überhaupt im Kunstfeld anschaut, dann stellt man schon schnell fest, beispielsweise für Österreich, die Top 10 eines Rankings, was letztes oder vorletztes Jahr in der Zeitschrift Format erschienen ist, da gibt es unter den besten 10 gibt's 2 Frauen und bei den besten 100 sind 19 Frauen. Ja, also das zeigt zumindest schon an, dass hier nach wie vor eine gläserne Decke besteht, auch wenn diese vielleicht so ein bisschen poröser ist und durchlässiger. Ja.
Essentially, I hope, because I was practicing in the feminist art world. So I hope that I'm not mistaken, but I think that nowadays really male and female artists have the same chances to get visibility if their work is valid. Probably female artists are not as pushy as male artists. That might be, and of course it can be that makes an impact. And on the other hand, of course, what inhibits women is still that they are involved sometimes or often in so-called female life courses, so to speak. So that's the biological thing, but I think it gets less and less, I hope.
What shocks me is that most of these people live under precarious conditions. And I think for me, a basic criterion for not only for success but also for a good life is that you can sustain yourself and that you earn some money. And so maybe it doesn't matter so much whether you earn the money as an artist or whether you have a job which allows you to be an artist on top of it or on the side of it. But I think this is the basic requirement for having a good life.
In former times there were fewer artists who had the chance to be successful. Nowadays there are more, but at the same time there is more competition.
I think there's a lot of space in this world. I mean, it's not like, there's just so many positions that are existing, and once they're taken, that's it. Then nobody else can, claim a position or develop a work. No, not at all. Anyway, I think failure is probably more successful at times. So.
I mean, the only thing why the art market or the art field is so sexy is because it is a winner-takes-all market. That's also a term that's coming from sociology. It's because only a few really succeed in this field and many of them don't succeed. That's what makes it so sexy. It's really not a democratic field, and I think we have to see that.
History is a filtering out process, and it's to do with what people at any particular time need. What satisfies their questions about the world, about experience, so what we need to know, what we need to think about.
I don't really know how one could escape this, because this system of the ones who make it and the ones who don't.
Da muss man natürlich erstmal sich wieder klar machen, was möchte man eigentlich? Möchte man viele Sachen verkaufen, um reich zu werden, oder möchte man eine bestimmte Form von Anerkennung erlangen? Und man muss sich, glaube ich, erstmal klar machen, welche Art von Erfolg will man überhaupt, um auch nicht depressiv zu werden, weil das dann alles nicht klappt, weil meistens klappt es ja nicht.